Hello everyone, I'm Rafael Sarkar. I'm a software developer and a student of RCMTA. And when I first actually heard of coding school for refugees, I got actually pretty excited. Like refugees are crossing the Mediterranean and the Balkan, going into coding schools, developing amazing machine learning algorithm and fighting hate crime with artificial intelligence. We're not there yet. But are the coding camps are at least finding some sort of decent job for the refugees? Let's find out. To find out, I'm joined by Fatima Hammami of Reboot Camp, a Syrian refugee and currently working as a tech mentor at Reboot Camp, and she also graduated from Reboot Camp. Heish Korsten, founder of Hack Your Future, a coding school for refugees in Denmark and Netherlands. They also operate in the UK by the name Code Your Future. Next month, you're going to start in Sweden too. Okay, and finally, Zara Shah, program manager of Recoded, a coding school for refugees and displaced, operating in Erbil, in Iraq, Şanlıurfa, and in Istanbul, Turkey. Okay, first we're going to actually talk a little bit about your curriculum and the selection process. Secondly, how this coding school are actually helping refugees to get the jobs and how they're getting funded. And finally, we'll actually open the panel to you all. So, yeah. Okay, let's start with Zara. How you're actually selecting the students for your coding school?
So we have a 3-tier selection process, and it's quite competitive because we want to make sure we have the most dedicated students in our program, and it is a 6-month intensive program. So at the first level is an application form which we promote through our partners and on social media, and the application form gives them also a chance to have a creativity challenge. So we asked them if they could build an app, what would it be and why would they create it? After that, they're shortlisted for a coding challenge. So they're asked to complete 4 lessons of the basics Java programming course on Udacity. And they complete a short challenge, which is then submitted to us and evaluated by our coding trainers. And the purpose of that is to really make sure that they have the dedication and patience to go through a course. So they'll go through the first 4 lessons and to complete the challenge. And they don't necessarily need to be experienced coders. This is also for absolute beginners. And then the third phase is they're invited for an interview, and we get a chance to know them better and speak to them, also have an idea of their English literacy, and then we go through the coding challenge with them and speak to them a bit about their app idea and their creativity and their ambitions for the future.
Okay, that's actually good. And how do you select your students?
I think it's very similar how we select the students. I won't repeat because it's basically the same. I think I actually also shared our knowledge with some of your people. I think the one thing we're looking for is real motivation. So if you're talented, but you don't have real motivation to make it happen, you're not going to become a developer, simply because learning code is a really frustrating process, and it really requires going through some really deep times where it's going to be really frustrating. So talent without motivation doesn't work. Motivation with a little bit of talent, I see that happening. So that's really what we're looking for.
Okay, so when you actually select the students for your coding school, do you expect them to have programming experience before?
No, absolutely not. So we only look for motivation, but it is a good indication that if somebody has studied programming before or has shown interest, so maybe like taking up a course on the side next to work, it shows that they're really, really interested and not just want to do the course. So that's how we select.
I also have to mention that Gijs was really helpful in helping us figure out the selection process and really make sure that we have the most committed people in the program.
Okay, so Fatima.
So we scan our candidates into 2 phases. The first one is learning aptitude, in which we ask the question of, are they willing to learn? Are they willing to to take risks and face challenges. And we kind of also ask the question of, if you get a job and work for it for the rest of your life, will it be a job that you do everything that you know, or everything that you feel good with and you're really good at, or is it a job that's going to be risky for you and you learn a new challenge every day and you'll be happy for it because you're learning something new? That's our first phase. Okay. The second phase will be the interpersonal and leadership aptitude, in which we go like, okay, are you willing to work with someone for 24 hours and not want to punch him in the face at the end of the day? Or are you willing to work with someone who you want to go have lunch with every day? Okay. So we really focus on these two aspects, because at the end we're kind of creating a network of leaderships and network of the next CEOs that they're going to rebuild Syria and like.
Okay. So the question about your curriculum, you are teaching JavaScript, data structure, complexity analysis, algorithm, function binding, jQuery, inheritance patterns, HTML, CSS, D3, Ajax, Backbone, React, MongoDB, SQL, NoSQL, Angular. How is that possible within 12 weeks?
It is possible, actually. So how it's possible, we kind of, we start, it's a 4 months program. We start with a kickoff of basics of JavaScript programming, fundamentals, and then we go with the 2-day sprints. The 2-day sprints, each 2 days, they kind of take the general aspect of that things that you just mentioned. We kind of let them see how to build or how to end up with building a full stack web application, and then they get to dive more into it. They're autonomous learners. They get to know more about it lately.
All right, fair enough. I've been coding for, well, formally for 7 years. I need to learn from you, seriously. Okay, so I'll go into Aish. So your stack is pretty clean, mean stack.
Well, actually not mean stack, but yeah, similar to that with React, yeah.
Okay, so why did you choose JavaScript?
So I don't know if there are a lot of developers in the room, so I could give a technical answer and a non-technical. I'll choose for the non-technical this time. Sure. So JavaScript is something that is used in the front end, so what you see on the website, and in the back end. So that makes it really valuable to learn, because everything you learn is one language for both sides, so you don't have to learn multiple languages. And that's really helpful. And it's very popular. There's a big community behind JavaScript, and there's a lot of demand on it in the job market, which is really important. So that's basically why we use JavaScript. Yeah. Okay. It's the bit of the cool thing in town at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true actually. Okay, back to Zara. You're teaching Android development and in partnership with Udacity. Why Android development?
So there are a couple of reasons why we chose Android. So on a local level, most smartphone users in Iraq have Android phones. They're much cheaper than iPhones. And we did trial web development in our pilot bootcamp, and we found that the local market is just not ready for it. We're dealing with a lot of legacy technology, and most companies in Iraq aren't really bothered about updating their websites and having the most kick-ass website out there. However, they're more inclined to have a really kick-ass app. So on a local level, it makes sense. Also on an international level, Android by 2020 will dominate the market. So there are job opportunities on both spheres. And also, it's based on Java, which, as Gijs mentioned, is a key language to learn.
That was actually JavaScript. But I'm a big fan of Java.
Java too.
It's my favorite language. So yeah, that's great. So, okay, now discuss actually how refugees are getting the jobs. Well, I'm going to actually start with Fatima. You're a Syrian refugee living in Jordan, but Syrian refugees in Jordan doesn't have a work permit. So after graduating from your school, how did you find a job, and how they will find a job?
Okay. So the thing is, Jordan have the same labor law as the EU. So basically, it's like each company, they have to have a certain limit of Jordanians. And after that, they can have a certain number of foreigners, as well as they kind of see of the job position quality. So if the candidates are not up, the qualifications are not up to the level that they want, they can simply hire refugees. The thing is, there's a gap between industry and universities grads. So what we're doing is we're kind of filling that gap. We're teaching the grads that these things that's missing, that the industry wants. And that's why our graduates will get jobs, because they have these kind of high quality education that will let them be.
Or do you create partnership with companies?
Yeah, we have more than 30 companies and partners.
Okay.
We have companies like Expedia, Arabia Weather, and OpenSouk that are really satisfied with the kind of quality of our engineers.
Okay, I'm gonna come back to you a bit later because I have a complicated question for you. So I'll start with Zara. In Iraq, refugees and displaced people don't have any restriction to work. But what about Turkey? How they actually can work in Turkey without knowing the language?
I don't think language is as much of an issue. It's also the fact that, similar to Jordan, Syrian refugees need a work permit. I think the rule is actually for every 5 Turkish employees, you can have 1 foreign employee. So the main option in Turkey is that, I mean, the ecosystem is there. There are loads of jobs, and there's just a lack of local talent. So we're filling the gap because 50% of our cohort are Turkish. But for Syrian refugees, we're looking into freelancing options, and also they're allowed to work on a contract, consultancy contract. But we're also working with trying to get permits for our graduates, and it's not a huge number, so the government wouldn't be greatly affected by providing us with work permits. But also on the Iraq level, it's kind of the opposite, because the ecosystem is pretty much non-existent. It's really at the basic level, and there's no restriction to work for refugees and IDPs, but there is a lack of jobs. So we are partnered with local startups, more so international startups that provide with internships. But really, it's really like the opposite in each context.
Okay. So back to Haish. So in Europe, being a refugee is very stigmatized. I never tell anyone that I'm a refugee because I don't get actually funding from the venture capitalist, and finding a job is going to be really, pretty much non-existent for me because everyone thinks refugees are stupid. So how do you actually create partnership with companies, and how do you make sure your graduate will get a job?
So one of the things we really try to ingrain in all of the students is that in our course, they're not refugees, they're developers, and we really want them to change their identity, that they really feel like a developer, that is their new identity. That's really important. If you put people out on the job market, and we have now graduated many people, and when we put them out on the job market, if you go market them as refugees, you will get a lot of different companies than if you market them as developers. So what we now do is we work with a bunch of recruiters that have nothing to do with us, and they simply put these people, our students, out in the market as developers. And then you see that the payment suddenly goes up, and you can ask a lot more money for them, and it doesn't really matter. But the sale pitch, if you start like, do you want to hire a refugee, really changes a lot of things for a lot of stigmatized reasons. So that's how we deal with that.
Have you created partnership with companies?
Yeah, there are many companies that are interested in working with us. Not just only for I want to do good reasons, but also for reasons like I just need developers, and if they're good enough, I want to work with you.
Okay.
And otherwise not, and that seems to work.
Your numbers are pretty impressive. Like you started with 135 students, 40% drop out, 90% graduate find work, and 41 student working in KLM, PwC, KPMG, Accenture. This is pretty amazing. And how did you actually manage to actually teach people coding in only 1,500 euro?
So the model of Hack Your Future is based on volunteers. So in every city in the Western world at least, there are a lot of really good developers, in Amsterdam particularly. And many of these love to teach, and they love to help in the refugee crisis. Like many people ask in all of Europe, like, what can I do? And these people have a lot of skills that are very valuable that they can give to our students. So we don't pay our volunteers, and we only have a team of 3 people, and we have built a curriculum around the volunteers that they don't have to put in too much time, because they have lives and they have families and hobbies. But we teach in such a way that it is not too much asked, but they put in a lot of quality, a lot of the quality that they know they actually convey and teach to the students, and that's really valuable. And it's really hard to get teachers who are that good on a long-term contract. But this way, they actually stand in front of class every week.
The tech scene in the Middle East is very different from the Europe. Like in Iraq, it's already actually, you're building the ecosystem, you're creating the partnership, but it's not like Europe. But when in Europe, your students are not actually building the websites. There is already a website. When they actually go into the office, they're gonna actually work in the back end, or probably developing new functionalities. And probably sometimes they will have to switch the languages, how they cope up with that, if they actually want to learn a new language.
If they want to, so how do they deal with learning new languages?
Yeah.
We train them not per se programming language, but more how to think like a programmer, how to learn new things. That's the most valuable skill. But because in 10 years, JavaScript probably is not cool anymore. Yeah. And all the things we teach now are not cool anymore. But they will know how to learn a new thing by themselves, and that's the most important thing we teach.
So Zara and Fatima, how do you actually help people? Because in the European language, we can actually learn the syntax of English very easily, but how do you actually help an Arabic speaker to read source code and every other take documents?
Well, basically our program is held in English.
Okay.
So our candidates, one of the qualifications to get in the program is to have spoken English. Even if it's not like a perfect English, it should be like basics of English, so that you can be able to learn these phrases of technology. We started last cohort with a pre-prep for RBK cohorts, which teaches them English. And that worked fine for a while, and we're going to try to do that for next cohort to implement English before we start our software engineering course.
I just also want to highlight that we don't just teach the Android Basics, which is the Android Basics Nano degree by Google and Udacity. We also have a soft skills curriculum that we've developed, which focuses on teaching teamwork, agile methodologies, project management, freelancing skills, entrepreneurship skills, and this is what also helps them become a great developer, so that they know how to work in tech teams when they enter the job market. And the final phase of our boot camp is a client project where they apply both their hard and soft skills on a real client, and they create a prototype of an Android app.
Okay. Unfortunately, we are running out of time, so we're gonna actually open the panel to the audience. If you have any question, you can ask quickly. No one has a question? I do have a last question. Like, you guys ever had a student who graduated from your school, then failed to obtain refugee status? What happened to him?
I have one. He was Iraqi, and he got sent back to Mosul, which at that time was ISIS territory, which I thought was a ridiculous decision. But then he got sent back. And we did a pilot with the UNHCR in Iraq, so he actually came to teach with us. And I'm really happy to say that we've been coaching him remotely now to get a job. And this week actually he got a job offer in Spain, but he rejected it because it wasn't a good enough offer. But I'm pretty sure that he will actually get a job, and that way, like he loses his status as a refugee because he's just so demanded, and he can just apply on a working visa.
That's pretty impressive stories. Like, probably, I'm pretty sure soon we'll have refugees building AI and fighting hate crimes. Okay, clap your hands together for our panelists.